the story of a little girl who had her NDE as a consequence of an assault by two men. She was drowned, or at least they tried to drown her. But she survived it because her father came to her rescue. But she, in the meantime, had her NDE and went through a tunnel. And at the end of the tunnel, it was blocked by an elderly person, a man. And she said, the only one that could do that was God. So I had my conversation with God. And the little girl of 8, she said, God told me that there is a recipe for life. And the recipe is very easy. It consists out of 4 ingredients. And these are love, be loved, just be, and experience life.
Welcome to Inspire Me with Jay, a podcast discussing meditation, the near-death experience, spiritually inspirational and transformative experiences. Welcome to Inspire Me with Jay. I'm your host, author, and teacher, Jay Spillers. I have a guest today, Robert Coppes. How are you?
I'm fine. I'm in Amsterdam at the moment, and it's still light. It's about 9 o'clock in the evening at our end.
Mm-hmm. So what is your background? Because you have done quite a few different things, haven't you?
Yeah. Well, I started doing economics, studying economics at a university in the Netherlands. And then during my study, before my study, I was also interested in spirituality. I was raised Roman Catholic, so that maybe have caused that. But during my study, I wanted to read books on this subject. And then suddenly I came to the book written by Raymond Moody, and he has coined the term near-death experiences. And that was in the book Life, Afterlife, which was published 50 years ago. It's half a century ago that it was published. And and then after that, I did I started my career in banking industry. I went back to the university to do my PhD and started going back to banking again. But during that period, I wanted to see if more was researched on near-death experiences. And I found in the Netherlands, in my country, a group that had done some research, very important research, that was also published in The Lancet, a very important medical journal. And I saw that there was also good research done in the US, and there was a big group in the US, the International Association for Near-Death Studies. And that started everything. I started writing books on this topic, and I became a board member of the IANS organization, the International Association for Near-Death Studies.
So you started actually researching near-death experiences. You got very interested in it. Did you personally interview people, or did you just read a lot of research and then write a book on it? Or
no, I did both. I read a lot. I was interested in the subject, as I said, so I already read a lot of things about near-death experiences. But then when I joined the organization in the Netherlands, I came across a lot of NDEs. So I spoke with a lot of them. That's where it started. And then I visited the conferences that IANS does every year in the US. The first one was in Virginia Beach. That's on the other side of your country. And I met so many people. So by now I interviewed a lot of people. I also along the way I read a lot of stories. People can access those stories when they go to ians.org and then find the archives where there are a lot of NDEs. People can just submit an NDE. So there are like 5% of the population has had an NDE, 4 to 5%. So do your math and find out how many people that should be in your state. It's a lot. It's millions across the country. And a subset of those have submitted their NDE in our archives. It's not always easy for people to talk about this subject. That's one of the things that I discovered. It's very private. It's very something very nice they went through, but it's difficult to talk about it because there are no words or no concepts that they can use in order to explain what they have gone through. So not everyone is open to them, to talking about it. So and imagine the people that must be more than 20. 1 out of 20 people, so that's 5%, 4%, would have had such an NDE. So one on every 20 people that has had an NDE, statistically seen.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. There's kind of a weird relationship between the near-death experience and religion, because on the one hand, you think religious people would be really excited about it because it's like, oh, it kind of gives evidence for God and an afterlife. It'd be kind of like right up our alley. But in another sense, religious people sometimes feel kind of threatened by it, like maybe it's not going to fit with my interpretation of religion, or it's going to deviate in some way, so they kind of feel threatened by it. There's been a bit more openness lately by religious people, but initially, like 20, 30 years ago, they were kind of closed to it.
Yeah.
Because I was interested because you said you were Catholic at one point.
Yeah, it depends on who you ask. There are a lot of ministers in the US and also member of IONS that are minister in a Christian tradition, and they nevertheless see this as a kind of a support for what they believe in. Having said that, there are also a lot of NDEers. People who've had an NDE change thoroughly. So when they were very religious beforehand, they turn out to be less religious afterwards, but more spiritually oriented. So they become more interested in other religions too, less into their own religion, or they venture out to other religions and see what is happening there. It's also as if walls break down for them. They don't feel confined. They know that the real thing is much, much bigger. That's what they say. The real thing, so the reality, what we are looking at, is much bigger than any one religion. And that doesn't only apply to people in Christian traditions, but also in Muslim traditions and Hindu traditions that I've spoken to. So other and Jewish traditions as well. So there's people change also, in their religion, but people change overall. They become less interested in money and power. They will be more interested in other people's feelings and in well-being of people. They are very much interested in that. They know that we are sort of very closely connected with each other. So if someone else is hurt, it also hurts in a way the NDEer himself or herself. So those are some of the peculiar after effects of an NDE. There are much more.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it seems that most people that have near-death experiences have a very pleasant one that would be more heavenly, if you will.
Yes.
Because it's like from the statistics that I've seen, at the max level, only about 12.5% have had a hellish experience, and in some studies, it's even lower than that. So that means, close to 90% or over 90% are having a very positive experience.
Yes. Yeah, so the statistics are difficult in this respect because people who have had a distressing NDE don't normally come out with, well, listen to me, I've had a very distressing near-death experience. In itself, people don't really start talking about their NDE. And if it's a distressing one, it's even more difficult for them to talk about it. That's where we start off with. So the statistics may be biased towards the positive ones, but nevertheless, the number of the positive ones are much, much higher. So it varies between 5% for the distressing ones, or and numbers as high as 20%, and that's it. So the other part, the blissful ones, are like 95% to like 80% or so. But and then still you have to look at the group of people who've had a distressing NDE, and it's not a homogeneous group, because also NDEs that or NDEers that feel that going through the tunnel at high speed, at the speed of light, is frightening, that would apply also as a distressing part of the NDE. Or people that are just afraid to just leave their body and be in another environment. For some people that's a scary experience. So those would also be counted as distressing ones. But having said that, there is, of course, there are also real hellish experiences, and it's very brave of some people who have written about it. So that's Howard Storm is one of the famous ones. Maybe you came across him. He became minister, by the way. And Kathy McDaniel is another one. And now we're talking about this distressing NDEs. Maybe it's good for me to explain to the listeners also that we understood, or we concluded from the people and the research that we did, and saying we is the other researchers, I'm quoting them on this, is that you cannot say that people have been bad will always have a distressing NDE, and people who have been good will have a blissful one. There are cases where we can say that, certain people were quite bad in their behavior, killing a lot of people. They had a blissful NDE, whereas other people, just common people like you and me, and Kathy McDaniel is an example of that, have had a hellish experience. So there must be another explanation for a distressing NDEs. And the theory is, the model that we have now is that it is the result of our collective conscious that pops up, that there are also bad and frightening images in that collective conscious, and they pop up during the NDE, or fears that the person, him or herself, has had during life, traumas in life. Like Kathy McDaniel, for instance, she was raised Roman Catholic, and she was so afraid of hell and purgatory that materialized. She was also so much afraid of rape and AIDS, and those were topics in her NDE. And now I talk about her. Maybe it's good to show her book. It's this one. It's Misfit in Hell to Have an Expat, and she wrote it, and I think it's such a brave thing she did. She lives in California, by the way, and it shows you that she's just a common person, and nothing strange. She didn't kill. And on the other hand, we have Damien Brinkley, and Damien Brinkley is a sort of famous NDEer. He has killed numerous people. He even detonated a bomb in a hotel somewhere else in another country in order to kill one person, and killed something like 50 innocent bystanders. He had a blissful NDE. The only thing that he didn't really like of his NDE was his life review. You know that some people have a life review. They can see what they've done to others during their life. They can see what they did in their life. It's really like a movie that goes very quickly. It is instantaneously, or moments flashing by, and it shows your life. And the purpose seems to be just to understand your position in the world or in life, and your relations to others. And you can see this life review in a very special way. Is that you can see it not only from your own point of view, but also from the point of view of the people that you interacted with. So if you did something very nice to them, you will feel their happiness. If you did something nasty to them, you will feel, the pain you caused. But you will not feel it only as a bystander or an onlooker. You feel it from their point of view. You become them. And that's very special. That's one of the things that I really, really find very, very, very special, very noteworthy.
Well, I mean, would one thing good be to let go of your fears, let go of, forgive yourself, let go of guilt and shame, and you'll be less likely to have a distressing death experience once you pass?
Yeah, maybe that's the case. Also, it seems like the moment you die, if it's in a peaceful way, maybe that would also lead to a nicer NDE. If it's in a violent way or something like that, it might affect the way you arrive on the other side. But also, I know that there are so many NDEers who have told me that they were told that there is no hell and no purgatory. So I tend to believe that it's only that the distressing NDE is something temporary. It is not something that lasts. People will get out of it. And as a matter of fact, many NDEers who have had such a distressing experience, they say that they came out of it, sometimes by just thinking of love, sometimes thinking of the God of their religion. In one case, even a person decided to start meditating, and then everything went from awful to bad, and then it went even softer. The distressing elements just vanished bit by bit. And so it seems that you have some kind of command over it, some kind of influence over it. And that is something that other NDEs have said. There are NDEers. Let me give you an example here. I know of an American woman. She lives also in Virginia Beach. She had her NDE as caused by a car accident. And when she was in her NDE, she was hanging in this dark void, that dark velvety void. That's something that more NDEs talk about. So it's a void that you can't see anything. It seems that you are alone. Some people feel that that's distressing. Some people, like Ellen Dye, that I'm talking about now, she thought it was wonderful. It was such a nice feeling. There was so much love for her, and it was so soothing. But after a while, she thought, well, this is a lovely feeling, but I'd like to see something else, something nice. And then she said in her, she said to me, um, it was as if a handful with paintbrushes came along and painted the most wonderful environment for me. So suddenly she was in an environment with rolling hills and butterflies and trees and flowers and streams, and a wonderful heavenly like environment. And so that's something that she in fact triggered because she wanted to see something else. So it seems as if we have command over what we see or what we experience to a certain extent.
Yeah, I heard of another one where she could just change her thoughts and different scenes would appear. And then like sort of like the default place was being in the light, but then she could like, you know, in an instant just appear in different scenes.
Yes, yeah, that would be an example of that, because it seems that you have some kind of influence. If you, it's also like if you think of a place to be, that's also an example. A Iranian person, a man, was driving in his car in Iran and had a car accident there, and then he was taken to a hospital and was treated there. He saw or he understood what the nurses were thinking. That's also something that's typical. When you're in your NDE, you can hear what people think. You understand them. And in this case, he understood what the nurse was thinking. The nurse thought, well, he's a goner. And she was very sad about that. But he then thought of his mother and wanted to know how she was. And at that moment, he was also in the house of his mother and saw that she was preparing a meal, unaware of what her son had gone through. But he was also in the hospital looking at this nurse. And then he thought of friends, and he was in the house of the friends and saw the same thing, what they were doing. But he was also in the house of the mother and in the hospital. So you can be at more locations at the same time. And so place is no issue on during an NDE. And time is also something that is very strange there. NDEers say that there is no time, or time works in a different way. It slows down, or it is one person said it's all time is there at the same time. Those are really very interesting examples. And this is the book where I have all these quotes in, and it's such a nice thing to read them through, because no one can really tell you what an NDE is unless you do some work yourself and read a lot of them or listen to a lot of them, because they will give you an impression of what they are. It's an NDE is undefinable. Because it occurs, as it seems, in an environment that's so totally different from our own environment. And there are no words and concepts to explain what they have gone through. So it's good to go through many NDEs and then form your own opinion about them. That's what I try to do in my book. I just leave it up to the reader to come to their own conclusion, just based on quotes ordered in a number of topics.
So it seems like essentially there's in essence, like a universal salvation, that ultimately everybody's going to end up in a good place and will never cease to exist. So that should be comforting to a lot of people.
Hmm. Yeah, it's salvation sounds very Christian-like, but it's like the um, there are a lot of NDEs that say that we all come from the same source, and maybe thinking of that makes it easier because um, there is, let's say there is one source. Let's just follow their information, their ideas. So there's one source, and we all come from there, and we are placed in a body, and we lead our lives. And you live in Montana, and I live in Amsterdam, in the Netherlands, in Europe, and we never meet each other. Now we meet each other on Zoom, and listeners can hear about me through Zoom. But that's it. But when we all die, we all go back to the source. There is no other place to go back to, and that's why I think there is no place for a hell. The hell is maybe something that we create here on earth for each other. Um, but eventually, I really believe that we all go back to the source because that's where we originate from. And there are people and the ears that say things like that. Let me give you an example there. There's one NDEer, and she said, leaving the body was such a wonderful thing because there was no anxiety anymore. There was no pain. There were no things I needed to do. There was no schedule. It was all gone. And it was such a really wonderful feeling. The only thing that was left was my conscious. My conscious was there because I could think. And then she went on and said, but even the conscious, my conscious, was going to be dissolved in this oneness. She doesn't use the word source; she uses something else. But she said it will dissolve in what we call the Godhead. So that's what she said. So if we listen to what she said, she actually says we will all leave our body and we only have consciousness, but even that will dissolve and we will go to where we originate from, and that is the Godhead or being God. And I understand that for some people that goes too far. If you say that we are all from God or that we all go back to God because we are from there, I can just give people the quotes that I have, and she's not the only one that says things like that. There are so many people with NDEs. Many of them, I think, a far big majority say that we are all very closely interconnected. So we don't feel it. I don't feel that, well, we have a connection now, but when tomorrow and this morning, I was doing my stuff and you did your stuff and we didn't have any connection then. But nevertheless, we are connected. We are connected with everyone, with every single thing, and also with nature and with animals. Now, that's the first step. There are a lot of people that say things like that, but there is also a group of people that go further. They say, well, we are not only interconnected, we are actually all one. And some people take it further and they say, we are all together, we are God, but everything together is God. And that means it means also the whole universe. And have you ever seen how big the universe is? It's incredible with all the stars and the galaxies that are out there. So that's what they say.
Mm-hmm. So, like in terms of the life review, because Danny and Brinkley had some elements they didn't like about it. can you, if you've done a lot of wrong things or bad things and you're concerned about how your life review is going to go, can you start to come to terms with some of the actions that you've done and said, I could have done this better, and start to sort of work through it? And then when you do die and have a life review, maybe lessen the negativity when you get to that part, or not even get to it necessarily?
Yeah, that's a very good question. It's the interesting thing with Daniel Brinkley was that he had a second NDE, and during his second NDE, had to go through. Let me back up. After his first NDE, he changed, so he became nicer towards everyone. He was he was working in a hospice, for instance, serving others. But then he had a second NDE, and in his second NDE, he had to go through the life review again, and also the first part, and that was still painful. So it is not washed away; it's still there, but the second part is nicer. So the main thing about life reviews is that what I understand from all the interviews that I did is that you understand your place on earth, your relations with others, where you came from, how you became the person you are, how the other parties became how they were. And the most important thing here is that there was no judgment, there is no punishment. And that may be very strange for people to listen, especially when you are brought up like me in a Christian tradition. I was raised Roman Catholic, as I said before. So there is punishment if you did things wrong. But in NDEs, I have never heard anything like that. There is no judgment. There is also, in my book, there is a story of a young a teenager, and he had his NDE, and he said that he had his life review in the presence of an angel. So the angel was the onlooker. And when the life review was over, he said to the angel, he said, well, I hope I won't be judged too severely. And then the angel replied by saying, well, you are judged by the most powerful judge there is. And then this teenager says, a little bit afraid, he says, when will that happen? And then the angel replied to him. He said, the angel said, it just happened. The judge was you. And the lesson from this is that there is no one else outside you that will judge you. The only one, if there is a judge, then it's you. I also understand from NDEs that it's not necessary even for you to judge yourself. But being in the presence of unconditional love and seeing the things where you created less love, because that's the thing that's important. It's the love part. If you created less love, or you distracted love from the world, then you will not really like it. You will not be satisfied. You will feel pain and sorrow. Moreover, you will feel what you did to the others as if you are the others. So you will feel their pain. That is in itself already, well, if you want to put it like that, it may be a bit of a punishment in itself. But it's not meant as a punishment. It's what I understand. It's meant as an understanding for you of your position in the world, what you did to the others, how it felt for the others. And that's why I always say, try to make your life review the best possible life review you can have. Be nice, give love.
You're listening to the Inspire Me with Jay podcast. Please do like and subscribe to the channel, bringing hope and inspiration to the world.
Hmm. Well, and the point of the life review isn't retribution, it's for spiritual growth. So that's the ultimate goal, is to help you to grow spiritually.
Well, even that is not necessary. Some NDEs also say we don't need to grow because we have all the knowledge within us. We have the unconditional love within us because we come from that source that is total love and total peace. So it's and total perfection. We all have that within us, but it's buried in this structure that's our body. And our body needs to be fed. We need to eat. We need to drink. We need this. We want to have that. We want to be rich, etc. And that gives other different problems. And that's where things go wrong, perhaps. But it's the still within us. There is the core is the divinity. And that is why some NDEs also say we have to express our divinity. We have to try to do that. Also, if you look at, for instance, people that are born in countries that are less wealthy, in places where there's a lot of violence, there is, of course, in the United States, there are also places like that, where for instance, you see people killing each other for drugs or for money or for whatever, and people harassing each other. Those are not good examples for children. So children will not be raised in a good way. They have no good role models, and they might become the same way. But is it their mistake? Because children in itself, they are pure. There's a pureness within every person, and it's being changed by whatever we experience. That is also why NDEs say, in their life review, they understood where the other parties they acted with came from, what they went through, how they became what they are, and why they did the things they did. And that applies to yourself as well. That applies to the NDE as well. There is a trajectory they went through with being raised, their environment. And then they do the things they do. So that's what they say. A number of NDEs say that.
Mm-hmm. So a lot of people do see Jesus during a near-death experience, and some have talked about his role in humanity, like he's to guide people to the light. And I've seen some say that he was the first created being. I mean, what is your impressions of who Jesus is in terms of the near-death experience?
Well, in near-death experiences, as you say correctly, Jesus is regularly seen, not by everyone. People of other religions typically don't see Jesus. They see deities of their own religion, like Shiva or Muhammad or Vishnu. You name it, other deities are seen with other people as well. But Jesus is seen in people's NDEs, that people that are living in Western Christian societies. And what I understand of the number of examples that I came through is that Jesus is a very wonderful person and very important soul, and he loves in a very special way. His love is unconditional. So yeah, that's what I understand of NDEs. There are a number of NDEs that have reported Jesus in their NDE. Yeah. And it's always in a nice way. And if you read the scriptures, Jesus is portrayed as a very nice person. He is, but only if you read the Gospels, in the stories of Matthew, John, Lucas, and the other fourth. I never was good in rows, learning rows from my heart. So if you read those, the stories are wonderful. He always takes the point of view of the underdog, of the people that have less, the poor people, oftentimes against the religious people. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, like, in terms of evidence for the near-death experience, because a lot of people, might be of the opinion, well, it sounds really nice, but maybe it's just a hallucination or something like that. But there is evidence of like the near-death experience. Like sometimes people are outside their body, totally unconscious, yet they can hear what's being said and they can see what's being done, and sometimes they can even read minds of people.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very important what you say. It's like, these stories of NDEs are wonderful. They are almost fairy tale like, but we need some proof. And I'm a scientist, so I always wanted to have some proof. And there is a circumstantial evidence that these NDEs are based in reality. And those are the cases, what you just mentioned, where people have their NDE, they see some things outside where they are, and then when they come back again after their NDE, it is being confirmed independently. So, and those are called the veridical observations. So observations that have proven to be real and correct. And in my opinion, there are two kinds of these veridical observations. The first category would be the observations that NDEs do in the vicinity of where their body was. Now imagine, as an example, that the NDE was in a hospital, in an operating scene, and the doctors are talking in a way, they're doing certain things, and then the NDE sees that or hears that, and later when he comes back again in his body and is recovered again, can say to the doctors, well, I see you talking about this, I heard you talk about this, I saw you do things like that, and that was confirmed independently. So those are the first category of veridical observations, and that proves, is to a certain extent, that your consciousness can be separated from your body and can be out of your body and seeing things outside your body while your body was out, sedated, so unconscious, and still you have a very clear conscious. You can think clear, you can see clearly, and that is very important. That shows you that your consciousness can be separate from your body. It doesn't show and doesn't prove that this otherworldly environment is there. And that is where the second category of veridical observations comes into play, in my opinion. And those are observations that NDEs make in this otherworldly environment, and then they come back again, and it proves to be correct. And I'll give you an example there. There was a woman who was in the hospital being unconscious. She had her NDE. She hovered through the hospital, but then suddenly she went into this otherworldly environment. There she met deceased relatives, something that is more often reported. And one of those relatives was a boy, a man. And the boy presented himself as a baby boy, and tells the woman, you have to remember how I look like, the clothes that I'm wearing, and tell your father, because I am your brother, and ask that of your father. And the woman said, well, I didn't know that I had a brother. No one told me. And that was exactly what was proven to be correct. The parents had a baby before she was born, but the baby died very soon, and it was a baby boy. And she didn't know that because the parents and the family never spoke about this. So she was not aware of having had a brother. And that was presented to her in this otherworldly environment and was proven later to be correct by what the father said. So these experiences, these veridical observations, for me are very important. And let me have you show you another book. The International Association for Near-Death Experience not only published my book, but they published this one. It's called The Self Does Not Die. And it's a book that has hundreds of these examples where there are veridical observations of the first kind and of the second kind. So veridical observations that show you that people can be, their consciousness can be separate from their body and can see whatever happens in the operating dome or at the crash site of the car or elsewhere. And those observations prove to be correct, proven independently. And the second kind, where they make observations in the otherworldly environment, and then those were proven to be correct as well. Very interesting book, very interesting cases there. And in my book, I also have a number of these cases. The very striking ones were in my book, are in my book.
Have you ever wondered whether the Bible was compatible with a near-death experience? In my book, Heaven's Truth, the parallels between the Bible and the near-death experience, your faith will be strengthened while you support this channel. In Heaven's Truth, you will learn about near-death experiences and other similar experiences in the Bible. Support for the Bible contained in NDEs, a central theme that runs through both the Bible and NDEs, how the NDE brings the Bible to life for these modern times, evidence for both the Bible and the NDE, and much more. Great book. Spillers does an excellent job weaving the relationship between NDEs and the scriptures. 5 stars on Amazon, available on Amazon.
Well, and sometimes there's miraculous things too, like Mellon Thomas Benedict had an inoperable brain tumor, cancer, and when he came back, it was in remission, it was gone. And other people had improved eyesight, hearing, things like that. That seemed miraculous.
Yeah, in my book, I also have some of these cases too. The self-healing cases, they are incredible, but they have happened, and it's a miracle actually. One of the stories is really very interesting. It's also in my book. It is about a man who had a car accident, and everything in his intestines was damaged, and he was a goner. And he had his near-death experience. And in his near-death experience, he was told he will go back, and he goes back. but he goes back to this body that doesn't, well, that's totally a loss, a total loss, so to speak. And then when he regained consciousness after his NDE, he was able to feel what was wrong, where there were bleedings in his body, and he could stop those bleedings, and he could direct, that's what he said, he could direct the flows of nutritions to the right places and restore everything. And the interesting thing is that the doctor couldn't believe what he saw. And at one night, the patient was, he was sleeping, and he awoke, and he saw in the dark the doctor sitting there in the corner of the room. And then he asked the doctor, "What are you doing here?" And the doctor says, I have to look at you. It's incredible what I'm seeing. And then the patient says, "Well, I'm sure you have much more important things to do." And then the doctor said, "No, I have to look at the miracle, because this is not possible." And later, the patient understands that the doctor had a child went through something similar and was lost. The child died because of the damages that were done within her intestines. But this patient was just recovering, and that is, it's unclear why that is. Some people, like also Anita Morjani, maybe you know of her, or your listeners know of her. She is something like that as well. This is a similar case, and it's not clear why she and this other patient that I mentioned just before will recover and why others don't. It seems to be as if there is something more that they had to do, and that's also what NDEs encounter. Oftentimes they are being told, you have to go back because you're not ready, your life's not ready, you have things to do, and then they don't want to go back most of the time. Sometimes people want to go back, but when they don't want to go back, they are sometimes shown what the importance is of their life, and then they decide to go back. So it's for us, it's difficult to understand why certain people have to go back and why they don't just die. Like this patient that I mentioned, why should he be given back his life? We don't understand that. So not everyone has a miraculous healing, but there are reports of a number of those, and very interesting stories always.
Well, does the near-death experience serve a larger spiritual purpose for humanity? Obviously, the individual is transformed, but is there a larger purpose for humanity in them? Why there's more of them being seen today? Part of it's, improvements in modern medicine, but, is it serving a larger purpose?
I think so. I still believe that the human species is developing to a higher level, being able to express their divinity better, but it requires some kind of a kick. And I think this might be one of those kicks. If people would really understand that NDEs exist and that they are based in reality, and that is through these veridical observations that we spoke about, and what you mentioned, that what is the proof, and this is certain proof, this is circumstantial evidence, that if people would really understand through veridical observations that near-death experiences are real, then maybe they will start looking at what the messages are. And I've always find the messages from NDEs the most important. it's not the way how people die. That sometimes is a very lengthy story, but the messages are the most important part. And for me, the two most important messages are, the first one is that there is unconditional love for everyone, no exception. And the other one is that we are all at least closely interconnected with each other. But probably we are part of one big whole. So if I do something to you, and that is also what we spoke about with life reviews, if I do something to you, I will feel it from your point of view. If it's nice, I will be happy. If it's not nice, I will be feeling the sadness and the pain on your end. So maybe if people would really understand that, they would think twice in harming other people. And as a side thing, that is also why I think the wars that are going on at the moment, like between Russia and Ukraine and between the Palestinians and Israel, on both sides, people will see what they have done to the others. They will feel the other side. It is, I can't say it differently. This is how I understand it from near-death experiences. So better do nice things and stop those wars. But on a smaller scale for ourselves. That's more important perhaps at this moment. We try to understand that what you do to others, you in fact do you to yourself. And it's a kind of a zero-sum game. If I feel your pain, then it's also my pain. If I feel your happiness, then it's also my happiness.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's almost like there's sort of a meta religion in that sense of love and oneness, and that God doesn't really care what religion you are. The main thing is to connect into love and to understand that we're all one. And that's sort of how the golden rule fits in. That if I harm you, I'm really harming myself because we're one.
Yeah. The interesting thing is that the golden rule is in any of the big religions. It's not only in Christianity. It is everywhere. So no one abides by the golden rule, or that's maybe too harsh. We should do that more often. And exactly what you say. The religions don't really give what it's in real. The reality, as I understand from NDEs, is much, much bigger. It supersedes any of the religions. That's a quote of one of the NDEs. So, yeah. But Howard Storm is a person that I mentioned before. He had a distressing NDE and he was rescued by Jesus because, and that's also interesting, he was asking for Jesus at one point. It took a long time for him to do that because he was very much an atheist and he had totally forgotten about his upbringing. And then he suddenly thought of Jesus and he asked for his rescue, and there he comes. That's interesting. So it's also what you want to have, you can have. But he then gets into a discussion with Jesus and he asked Jesus, what is the best religion? And I thought the answer was so beautiful. The answer was, the best religion is the religion that brings you closer to God. And I like that sentence. So religions are not bad in itself. They can help you to come closer to God. But also for people that don't believe in anything, like atheists, they can come closer to God as well. it sounds maybe strange, but they could be very spiritual in another way, that they don't believe in a God, but they believe in other things that are love, or in any case, love is the most important thing.
Mm-hmm. Well, do you think it'll probably be quite an exciting thing for an atheist? Because, when they die, they'll say, "Oh, wow, there is more," and it'd be something positive in that sense.
Yeah. If you're a real atheist and you believe that after your death there's nothing there, there's nothing to worry about, because the light goes out and you won't realize that the light went out. But there are NDEs that were atheist and had their or had their near-death experience, and then realized that there was something else. And after their NDE, they believe in the continuum of your consciousness, and that there is something else. So they stop being atheists, but not necessarily going to go through a specific religion or so. You don't have to go do that.
Mm-hmm. Well, so also, what do you think of like reincarnation? That seems to be somewhat common in the near death, that they live multiple lives, or
Well, interestingly, there was a research done, and it showed that the number of, or the percentage of NDEs that believed in reincarnation is the same percentage as in the general population. So I don't think you can say that after an NDEs, or after their experience, NDEs become believers in reincarnation. I know some NDEs, and they don't feel that that's the case. But I can't say that how it really is, because I don't think that anyone can say that. It's the other side is so different from our world here that if there is someone that says he or she knows exactly how it works on the other side, then I would just advise to run away quickly. And reincarnation, it might be a possibility, it might be real, but it might not be either. Just think of the fact, or think of what I just mentioned, that we are part of one big whole, that there is this source that we will be dissolved in. A new child, when it's born, will not necessarily be the same, whatever substance it is that we were when we died and we were dissolved in this oneness. I don't know how to picture that. It could be like, just imagine there is a big ocean, and that's the source. And when people are born, we take a little cup of the ocean and put it on the side of the ocean, and there's 8 billion cups of water representing each of the people, each of the humans on Earth. And when a person dies, we just toss away in the ocean the cup of water. And if someone is born, we pick up a new cup of water. It doesn't need to be the same cup of water, because it's diluted in the whole sea. And other images that was given by people or NDEs is that we can see ourselves as waves in a sea. Once the wave is there, it is something. But once the wave sinks back in the sea again, it's gone. But it's still there. The water is still there, but it's somewhere in the ocean. So the people that are born are like the waves, but they go back again to where they came from. And it's not the same water in the next wave. It's always different. I don't say that this is the way it is, but I just want to give an alternative next to the idea of reincarnation. And there was an NDE that said, we don't reincarnate, God reincarnates. That's interesting, I thought.
So what are some exciting things that you find in the near-death experience, that we maybe haven't touched on yet?
Well, I think we touched on the most important things like unconditional love, oneness. I think those are important. There are stories that are very interesting, individual stories. And one of the stories that I always refer to is the story of a little girl who had her NDE as a consequence of an assault by two men. She was drowned, or at least they tried to drown her. But she survived it because her father came to her rescue. But she, in the meantime, had her NDE and went through a tunnel. And at the end of the tunnel, it was blocked by an elderly person, a man. And she said, the only one that could do that was God. So I had my conversation with God. And the little girl of 8, she said, God told me that there is a recipe for life. And the recipe is very easy. It consists out of 4 ingredients. And these are love, be loved, just be, and experience life. So love, be loved, just be, and experience life. And I thought that was so simple and so valuable as a message, because it's all about love. And that's what comes out of so many NDEs. And the other 2, just be and experience life, are also things that other NDEs say. Other NDEs say life is so important to be enjoyed. Also enjoy life. Even if you are in the midst of big problems, it is something, it's difficult to picture that, but it's important that we go through these problems, that we have them, that we try to solve them. And also in the midst of those problems, there is something to enjoy. Because on the other side, you can't enjoy the wind in your hair. You can't smell a rose. That's what I understand. It's different. The other side cannot do these kind of things. We can do those things.
Mm-hmm. So you've written at least one book, haven't you? And what is the name of your book, or do you have multiple books?
It's the book is Impressions of Near-Death Experiences. Again, this.
Mm-hmm.
I have to look at where the light is. Impressions of Near-Death Experience, and there's quotations from over 100 experiences. So there are hundreds of quotes of NDEs in my book, because each NDE had more than one quote, and it's published by the International Association for Near-Death Studies. And the other book that I wrote was Essences of Religions, where I compared 5 main religions with NDEs. That was interesting to do as well, at least to understand other NDEs. Other religions. That was a very nice project.
Mm-hmm. And where can people reach out to you if they want to get a hold of you?
People can go to my website. It's bobcoppes.com. So B-O-B, and then Coppes is COPPES.com. And there is a form that they can fill out if they have a question or a remark or anything. And my book is available on Amazon.
Okay. Well, thanks for being on today. It was a pleasure to have you.
It was wonderful to be with you. Very interesting questions, very important topics we touched upon. Thank you for having me do this.
Have you ever wanted to learn to meditate? Check out my book, Meditation for Everyone: How to Quickly Have a More Peaceful, Mindful, and Fulfilled Life, and support this channel. With Meditation for Everyone, you will learn to quickly and easily meditate, relieve stress and anxiety, alleviate depression, and have more joy, peace, and relaxation. What you will learn: mindfulness, the art of stillness, step by step on how to meditate, strategies for overcoming challenges to meditation, and much more. D. Mason said this is a nice meditation book, even for those already meditating. I agree with the statements that it will help to have a more peaceful, mindful, and fulfilled life. 4.6 star rating, available on Amazon.